Oh no! Some guy on the internet named Jacob has an opinion about me. So I've been doing beer miles, beat my beer miles, and I've been doing NA beer because I've been doing multiple a week while also continuing to do this Calendar Club 365 challenge where today is the 26th, so I'm running 26 miles. On top of that, I'm lifting 4 days a week starting at 6 a.m., ending at 8 a.m. So being drunk is not part of my goals. It never has and never will be. So using NA beer is a way for me to still make it competitive and do the beer mile where if anybody's done beer mile, they know that the alcohol doesn't take into effect until after the conclusion of the mile. It's really more about the carbonation and the consuming liquids while then sprinting, which makes it difficult. But some dude on the internet named Jacob sent me a DM, and he wrote, "I just realized you did NA beers. You're a fucking liar and deceiver, and you know it. You're a joke to this beer and running community. Piss off and drink seltzers." Well, Jacob sent this at 3:22 in the morning, so he was either drunk himself, but have it being a Tuesday night, he was more than likely contemplating his life because he has nothing else going for him. Because anybody who's up till 3:30 in the morning sending DMs like that simply has nothing going for them that keeps them going to bed, waking up fresh minded. And so I don't hate Jacob. The thing about Jacob is I feel bad for him because that's a sad existence, and an existence that before I started running, it's probably a place that I was where I was just hateful toward the world because I couldn't solve any of the problems going on in my life because I wasn't taking action. I wasn't taking accountability. I wasn't taking responsibility. And that's a hard place to be in. So I actually empathize, and I really feel for Jacob because in order for someone to send that message, you must be going through a real tough time. So Jacob, if you're out there listening, there are ways to overcome this, and the first step is understanding that the world isn't your problem. You are the problem, and you should take the actions necessary to better your mental health and physical health. So that kind of leads me into something I want to talk about today, which is the lessons that I have learned through running, the lessons that I've learned through Calendar Club. And one of the ways in which I've seen my growth since the first time I did Calendar Club to today, to this full year of Calendar Club, was going back and listening to my Yoakum Strength podcast with Austin Yoakum after the first time I completed this challenge back in April of 2020. And I wrote some notes. One of the things we talked about during that podcast was emotional maturity and growth by just taking a pause. And I think this DM is a great example of when you feel an emotional charge. In the podcast, we talked about some guy cutting me off, and I was on day, 27 or 28 in the month, and I had this like reaction, this initial reaction to want to get angry and engage in rage towards this gentleman. And at that time, I just took a pause, and it was the first time that I had recognized growth in myself where instead of reacting, I took a moment, I paused, and I asked myself, like, why do I feel so much anger around something that is out of my control? This guy probably didn't do it intentionally, and it's okay to not react with anger. So having the emotional maturity and growth is not removing the anger from your life. It's not removing having an emotional charge. It's not removing the things that you don't like about yourself or the ways that you react to things. It's much more about being aware of them and then trying to ever so slightly adjust the reaction time. Because when you do that, you'll understand that there are better ways of dealing with that stress. There are better ways of dealing with situations that come up. And having that moment of pause really allows you to be aware and come back to center and just be like, oh, wait, this is not that big of a deal. And I don't have control over it. And the world doesn't hate me. We experience life through from within. And so when we believe that the world hates us, a lot of times it's because we don't have um, the best beliefs about ourselves, the best feelings and emotions and criticisms. And like we need to change the conversation that's going on internally before we try and change the world around us. Because once we do that, the world will ultimately change around us, because how we experience the world is very much how we experience our internal dialogue. Not feeling accomplished, that was a big one. I remember that listening to that conversation with Yoakum and just telling him that I didn't feel accomplished, and that's sort of how I feel during this moment in time, where it's not necessarily that I I'm not proud or I don't appreciate the work and the time and the energy that not just myself has put into this, but other people have helped support me in this. But it's not like I don't feel any different. And I suppose that's a good thing. I suppose that I'm the awareness around doing these running challenges isn't going to be the thing that ultimately changes how I feel about myself, because there's a great quote where I don't know who said it, but the way you feel at the top of the mountain is all of the ways that you feel about yourself as you make that climb. And so if you are expecting to feel differently at the top of the mountain, whatever mountain you're climbing, for me was Calendar Club 365, I feel the same that I felt throughout this entire challenge, because I know that this accomplishment isn't going to make me more of a person. It's not going to make me more valuable, more likable, more worthy. I think that's a big one, and that's the truth. It's I am who I am, not because of what I do, but because of the internal work that I continue to take notice of and take action against. And running and Calendar Club specifically is a way for me to express those things. But just because I've done something big like this, that doesn't mean that I'm therefore bigger because of it. I think that's all an illusion, and something that I am continuing to find to be the lesson in all this, that I am just a man who struggles, fails, and sins daily. And just because I accomplish big things, that doesn't make all of those other things go away. I am still a man. And I think it's important to recognize that we shouldn't build ourselves up and allow our ego to take over, and see ourselves from this perspective. Always come back down to earth. My goals going into both this Calendar Club 365 challenge and the original Calendar Club challenge were both because why not? And I felt that this challenge has allowed me to see what I view as important, not just with my life, but how I view running and the different ways in which I want to continue moving forward and moving differently, maybe having more of an impact. After I did the first Calendar Club challenge, I bounced right into doing Love Like Lori runs. They were a series of 3 different charity runs. The first starting with a 160-mile run for pancreatic cancer, where we raised $10,000. And Love Like Glory Legacy is a nonprofit that I'm on the board with. I helped start with my friend Blake and his father John, and my friend Andrew, and Blake's sister Emily, and Lori. The foundational piece to the nonprofit is Blake's mom, who passed away from pancreatic cancer back in August of 2020, and uh, these runs were a way to bring awareness and funds and healing to the situation. And so we did a series of three. That was the first run. The second run was a 266-mile run across Minnesota. We raised $22,000. And then the last run we did in 2022 was from Springfield, Illinois, the Capitol Steps in Springfield, all the way back to St. Paul, Minnesota, the Capitol building here. And that was a 500-mile run that we did over the course of 9 days, and we raised $51,000. We've raised money in other ways since then, but that was the launch pad after doing Calendar Club the first time, was feeling almost like there wasn't this deep connection to anything more than just a physical accomplishment, a pat on the back. And I wanted to find a way to bring that element of team back into running. And for me, that was Love Like Glory. Because I had played college sports, football, and lacrosse, and those were ways in which I could work toward personal and team goals. And I feel like with the Calendar Club Challenge, it really is like a personal endeavor. And yes, there's inspiration and motivation, and it impacts other people to get out and moving. But I think there's other ways to incorporate running that is more than just having a byproduct of inspiration being a part of that. So that's definitely something I'm leaning into more as I come out of this challenge, is how can I incorporate more meaningful ways of connecting my running to people, and it not just being inspiration or motivation for people, but a way to really connect with them on a deeper level. Confidence comes from action. Yeah. So this is something that I have talked about for years, and words can be useful, but at the end of the day, the value of your words is the link that they have with the actions that you do on a daily basis. Not necessarily the big actions, but the little actions that create the big actions. So I just want to be the type of person that does what he says. And I think, today in this, consumer, creator, influencer economy, it is a lot about talking, and it is a lot about how can I create the most attention around myself through the words, through the videos, through the, you know, productions that I'm doing. And I fully understand that I take part in that. Like, I'm making a video right now that I'm going to post on YouTube, and I'm going to cut up on to Instagram. And so I am a part of that, and I'm not, totally deeming that as a negative, but I do want to make sure that my actions align with the things that I say that I'm doing, and align with the words that I'm preaching, because I never want to be the type of person that just gets up on stage and gives inspirational speeches but isn't actually doing the work behind the scenes. And I think breaking down, when Austin and I talked about Calendar Club back in 2020, we talked about how I hadn't trained for it. The only thing that I had done before Calendar Club really was 4 months prior, April, so a little bit more than 4 months, but October 2019 was my first ever run. I did a marathon. I trained, for probably 4 weeks leading up to that, but I did a marathon in October. I did a few other runs in between, but then April I did Calendar Club, and I wasn't trained for it. I didn't have this background of running, and Yoakum started a gym that is now a very successful gym, and he slept on the floor of his gym for many months and years. And like when we look at the things that we're doing now today, where we started was a very similar place to where most people are at. Everybody starts from the beginning. And I think it's important to mention that if you're looking at me doing this big calendar club challenge or Austin with his gym, there's nothing special about us. There's nothing inherently special about who we are. We just believe in ourselves. We believe that by doing the work over a period of time that will produce results, but it takes time. And there's no reason why you aren't able to do something if where I'm at and where Austin's at, if we're able to do it, you're able to do it. That's the main message. It's about breaking down the excuses that I'm it's breaking down the excuses that people will bring up, but it's also breaking down the excuses that I once was giving to myself. So, yeah, intention matters. You got to create the intention. Responsibility isn't a performance. Responsibility is the action. It's not performing. It's not making it known. It is doing the work needed to be done. Um, I was reminded of a quote in that podcast of discipline is doing the things you need to do over the things you want to do. Maturity is when the things you need to do become the things you want to do. And I'm still evolving in that as well. But I think what I've done over, especially this year, is I have prioritized my life in a way where I want to accomplish goals and I want to create these systems in which create these systems in which if I say I'm going to do something, I do it, and I have a body of evidence to prove that. Um, and and I think that evolution has become a part of my day-to-day life. Like the maturity aspect of the things I need to do now are definitely the things I want to do. Waking up and lifting at 6 in the morning, 4 days a week, I want to do that now because I see the growth that it's provided me, but I also see that as like such a healthy way for me to engage in competition, engage in um, growing myself and being surrounded by people that are ultimately going to push me to be the best version of myself. The last thing kind of circles back to someone like Jacob, and this is harsh and it's not meant to deter someone like him, but there's always going to be losers in life. There's always going to be losers in life that want to tell you that you're not living up to their standard. Okay? Jacob's standard is so low in comparison to the standard that I hold myself to that if you can understand that the only person's opinion that matters is the one in yourself, and you can continue to hold yourself to a high standard, then this guy doesn't matter. There's nothing he or anybody else can say that will affect me in a way that I have already said to myself. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, when people, and this is super helpful when you're receiving a lot of praise, because I've been receiving a lot of praise over the last couple months for this challenge. Even though I know deep down this challenge hasn't been the thing that is like really pushing me. And so when I know the standard that I want to live by and that I want to live up to, then whether I'm receiving praise or I'm receiving negativity, it doesn't ultimately affect me in the same way that it used to, because the standards they start and end with me. And only I can know at the end of the day if I'm living up to those standards. So if you're on a growth journey, whether that is a physical, a mental, emotional, whatever that journey is for you, be very clear on what is going to fulfill you or give you a peace of mind at the end of the day. Because if you're not clear on that, then you might have people that show up in your DMs because it's inevitable. Because it is inevitable, there will always be judgment on you if you're doing something. People will judge you. People will praise you. People will judge you. People will criticize you. You have to be ready for that. And it will have less of an impact when you can have those standards be set by you. And that comes with journaling, that comes with talking to people, that comes with being surrounded by the right people, setting your standards and living by them. No one can touch you. No one can hurt you. No one's praise can build you up, your ego up in a way that you lose sight of what truly is important. So I think that's all I got for today. If one of the things I'll end on is starting in June, I'm running home back to Chicago for Father's Day. It'll take me about 10 days, and I'd like to set up beer miles along the way. So I'm in St. Paul, Minnesota. I'll be going through Madison on my way home to Chicago, and what I'd like to do is set up 3 or 4 beer miles to compete with people along the way. And so if you're in the La Crosse, Wisconsin, or Madison, Wisconsin, or anywhere along that way home, comment below, or just, tell me what athletes I should meet up with along the way. I'd love to hear what you guys think, and I would really like to put together some cool, kind of like daily vlogs around a run home. I think it's like 500 miles, something like that. But let me know in the comments below. Thank you guys for listening, and have a great rest of your day.